In this video, I want to discuss what it felt like when I was depressed. Back in 2009, I entered into a pretty deep depression. And at the time, I was taking a lot of medication. And I think that the reason why I became depressed was because of the stress of working as a nightclub promoter and also as an investment banker. I was burning the candle on both ends. And as a result, I ended up having to take this medication to act as a coping mechanism to decrease the level of cortisol and stress that I had, and also to help improve my sleep quality. And it actually had the opposite effect. And things actually went downhill in 2009 when I stopped working as a nightclub promoter, and I also stopped working as an investment banker because I had to focus on myself and I had to get healthy. And I want to share with you what it felt like when I was very depressed. So the first thing was the medication that I was taking. I was taking Zyprexa, Paxil, Anafranil, and a small dosage of Adderall. And initially, this medication had a positive effect on me, but after a while, my body started rejecting it, and it started becoming very difficult for me to talk and also very difficult for me to remember things. Now, this started very slowly. Back in 2008, I was still highly productive at my jobs. The problem was that it had a very slow and deleterious effect where over time, I would start forgetting things. It would be difficult for me to communicate, and the quality of my work started decreasing. And additionally, my sleep quality would decrease as well. So when I would wake up the next day, I would start feeling less and less refreshed and not as sharp as I usually was. Because of this, I felt like my brain was really slowing down. Like oftentimes people would talk to me and it would be difficult for me to process the information and to understand what they were saying. And for someone who graduated from an Ivy League university and worked at some of the most prestigious investment banks and who worked with some of the most prestigious investment bankers, not having the ability to think clearly was extremely frustrating. So my brain slowed down. It was harder for me to understand what was going on in the world. The next thing was that I was constantly tired, and it didn't seem like I could ever catch up on my sleep. Even during the weekends when I would sleep until 3 or 4 p.m. the next day, I would never wake up feeling refreshed. The next thing is that when I was really depressed, it felt like there was a curtain that was draped over my left prefrontal cortex and my left frontal lobe. It's really hard to describe this, but I can tell you that I felt when I was very depressed that a curtain was being draped over the left side of my brain, and it was stopping any light from emanating out of that part of my brain. It just felt like a constant low-grade, dull pain on the left side of my frontal lobe, and I think it was caused by stress, and then it was caused by the toxicity of the medication, and it just is something that did not go away for probably about 1.5 to 2 years. And the final thing was I had a very large increase in obsessive compulsive behavior. So I had a lot of lists and I would constantly keep them in my pocket. I would check my pockets. I would do things where like I would wash my hands and wash my clothes multiple times. And the big thing was list making, where I would throw something out and then I would be concerned that I threw something out that I actually needed. So I would actually pick through the garbage to make sure that what I threw out was not something that I actually needed. And the OCD would increase as I became more and more depressed. I'm not sure if the OCD was a coping mechanism for my diminished mental abilities, but I can definitely say that I had a higher incidence of OCD while I was depressed. And additionally, my verbal communication ability was significantly diminished where it was relative to when I was not depressed. So this is what I felt like when I was depressed. I think if I had to rank them on what was the most problematic, I would definitely say that having that curtain, or at least the feeling of having the curtain and the constant low-grade pain on my left prefrontal cortex, was by far the most annoying. The second thing was my decreased mental abilities and the inability for me to think clearly and process information and engage in conversations and remember things. The third thing would probably be the OCD, because that became problematic and it probably led to me having the obsessive thoughts and the mitigating compulsions about 2 to 3 hours every single day. And yeah, that was my experience with depression and OCD. One of the ways that I was able to overcome it was by actually getting off all medication, clearing up my diet, taking supplements and taking better care of my health, and also removing myself from stressful situations. And it wasn't like a quick fix. It wasn't something that improved itself within 6 months. Now, I did notice slow incremental improvements with time, but I wasn't able to get back to where I was pre-depression for about 3 to 4 years. David Jaffe with BestStockStrategy.com. I wanted to share with you my experiences because I know that there are a lot of people who are going through depression. And I do also want to tell you that there is hope for people who are suffering from depression. In 2009, I was on very powerful medication and I was suffering from severe depression. And even though that was about 11 years ago, almost 12 years ago, I haven't taken any medication in 11 years, and I also haven't had any recurrences of that depression in the past 11 years. So if you're going through a difficult time right now, if you're struggling, then there definitely is a path for you to make a full recovery. Because take it from someone like myself who was on powerful medications and who was struggling with depression and who was sleeping for 20 hours a day, I haven't had any recurrences of that depression and I haven't taken any medication in 11 years. So if I could do it, then you can do it as well. Leave a comment below and let me know your thoughts on mental health and depression, whether you've ever struggled with it, and I appreciate your attention.